Hello guys, how you all doing? Great to have you here. So I have a new video I would love to react to from David Gibson, and it says Candace always triggers road work students, and this happened.
So if you could educate yourself a little more, you would know that.
Okay. I will educate myself.
It's not fair.
Don't ask me a question and then cut me off when I give you the answer. It's just obnoxious. It really is.
All right, y'all. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're tuning in. I'm grateful to have you here. And we got Candace Owens back in the building, taking on some very rude and confused young students over at Georgia Tech. So brace yourselves. This is a doozy. This is being put on by Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. This is a conference called the Live Free Tour. I put two clips together that I'll give my perspective on each afterwards. So let's get it poppin'.
Hi, I'm wondering, there are dozens of words for two-spirited people that would now be considered LGBTQ or trans people in the native languages. So I'd like to know how, as these people have existed for thousands of years before you were alive or anyone else in this room was alive, and before anyone even colonized America. If trans people were around then, I'm just wondering why you think it is that trans people are only here now because the media is telling people these things.
Well, do you think it's weird that I graduated with 0 trans people? What do you think has contributed to the explosion of transgender people from the time that I was in high school? I'll ask you a question back. If this was just a natural thing, and I don't know what you're talking about with two-spirit people, is this like a Native American tribe, like high, smoking, and talking about your spirit? I'm asking you seriously, because when I think of Native American tribes talking about their spirits, I know that they used to smoke a lot, they used to do drugs, they also were cannibals who used to eat people, so I don't know if we should be taking our cues from cannibals. But
I think
can you
that's
explain
kind
to me
of
what
ridiculous.
two-spirit is in the history?
There are people that would now be considered trans people that did not feel that they fit
What
the
part, though?
binary
Native
gender.
Americans? I'm asking you.
Yes, I'm telling you that not only in one Native American tribe, but in multiple tribes, there were dozens of terms that referred to people that would now be considered trans, and that was hundreds of years ago. So I'm just wondering why you think that people are only trans now because the media is telling them to be.
Well, I told you, because of the proliferation. So you can't just go from having 0% to suddenly 25%
Right, but what
of
I'm
people.
saying is that these people were around for thousands of years.
Well, what you're saying is that some Native American tribes had people that would be considered trans today, something that we can't fact check because they're dead.
It's
right?
historical knowledge.
It's historical
documented.
knowledge that there were trans Native Americans.
Yes.
I really don't think that's historical knowledge. But here's what I'll answer.
then.
I don't think that there were
Well, I'm telling you
trans
that
Native
there
Americans.
were.
I will educate myself on the trans Native Americans that were running around America. But here's what I'll say: Native Americans were also cannibals. Did you know that fact? Did you educate yourself on the
All
fact?
Native Americans were
So
cannibals?
should we just assume that it's natural for us to be eating humans because Native Americans were
I
cannibals?
really think that don't apply to what I'm asking at all.
It exactly applies to what you're asking. You're saying that you found a piece of historical knowledge, which I would genuinely love to fact check, that there were trans
Do you want some
Native
names?
Americans of their trans names. Yes,
Lozen, Datese, Hastinkla, Oshtish, Wehwa.
these were trans Native Americans.
Yes.
Okay, I think what you're saying is that they probably found some that they thought that they had different spirits, because we know that Native Americans were incredibly spiritual. There's no question
Are
about
you
that.
not
Which
spiritual? You believe in God?
Of
is,
course.
I do believe in God. Yes.
So
That doesn't make me believe in trans people. That doesn't make me believe that you can switch your parts. I don't believe they were performing surgeries. And you can let me know, but I don't believe that in Native American history they were performing surgeries trying to switch their genitals because they thought that they were born in the
there
wrong
were people
body.
that felt that they didn't
Felt.
belong in the binary
feelings.
genders that we have.
Okay, so you're talking about somebody in the history of Native American history had a feeling that they were, and now you're saying that they're trans.
I'm just saying, I don't think you're really addressing what I'm asking. I'm saying that
I think
trans
I've addressed it
people
like
have been
20 times, and you're just not wanting to hear it because you want to believe that there were trans Native Americans that were chopping off their genitals. They weren't. But I'm, again, happy to educate myself and explore it.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a Native American that was chopping off genitals. happen to have in my family a Native American history, never heard of it, but I'm definitely happy to dive into it. I think what you're probably facing is a rewrite of history where they're taking something that was just an idea of a spiritual idea where people, and you see this today, who take ayahuasca, they have a trip, they go back, they say that they realize they were a man in a prior life. This is very common when people take drugs, which the Native Americans did. But again, they weren't chopping their off. So no, this is a different thing that we're dealing with here. Next question.
Hello? Fact check, young lady. You can't intertwine Native American culture with postmodernist culture like we see today. That would be like trying to explain trigonometry to a classical age Greek philosopher. It just wouldn't make any sense, just like she didn't. If you smoke a lot of high, that's what I like to call drugs that these Native Americans consumed, all the stuff that they put in their systems, you may think a lot of things are true.
Exactly.
Like you may think you're a bird that can fly, but you soon find out if you go to the top of the Sears Tower or the Burj Khalifa and you jump off that thing, you'll learn real quick that God made gravity undefeated. You cannot fly. Just because you perceive things a certain way doesn't make it true. Two genders, two spirits, not the same thing. You could believe that you have two spirits, that you're a man with a woman's characteristic or vice versa, but that doesn't change the fact that there still are only two genders, male, female. God created them Adam, Eve, not Adam, Steve, not Eve and Amelia. No matter what version of the Bible you're reading or aren't reading, that's exactly what it is. And for the record, there's no such thing as trans. It used to be called transvestite or cross-dressers or those people that walk with a little switch and a little flame and sugar in their tank. But there's no such thing as a transformation of somebody's biological gender. You can't change it. You can't swap out. You can chop off. You can make yourself a eunuch. You can do all that. But it'll never change the fact that God created all of us in his image to be male or female and honor the creator. That's what it is. And these people need to stop using these false labels for homosexuals is what it usually refers to. A man is dressing as a woman for whatever reason, wants to play pretend as the opposite sex, but still likes dudes. It just don't make no sense. It's all an abomination and it needs to be repented of, just like all other sins in the world. These kids will have you fooled into believing that two-spirited meant that they thought that they were going to mutilate themselves or that they actually went through and castrated themselves as a man or swapped out parts. Like a lot of people nowadays get all hyped up to go chop things off and treat their body as a pawn shop and trying to change what the creator blessed them with. But that's not what it meant back then at all. And it was very rare in these tribes. Usually if a man felt like he had feminine traits or women characteristics or things like that, men would have been what a woman would have done at that time. They would have did basket weaving or pottery making. Or if a woman felt like a man, she might have been a healer or a doctor or a hunter, gone out, killed the game, brought it back to eat, things like that. But we see examples of that all the time in society today, and we don't label these people as two-spirited. Like we don't label women carpenters or lawyers or doctors as two-spirited because they get into a field that's, predominantly a male dominated field, or men that, are waiters or cooks or stay at home dads. That might be looked at as more feminine in some cases, but it's not two-spirited by any means. You got to keep that same standard. It is what it is. It has nothing to do with this transgender, false pride, sinful abomination expressed. Some men have female tendencies or characteristics, just like women. Some of them have masculine tendencies and characteristics. You got some girls out here with beards as luscious and full as mine, and some guys that are as clean shaven or smooth skin on the arms and legs as a baby's bottom. Mm-hmm. That could be by preference, or that could be because their hormones produce more hair in men or women. It just is what it is. Some people choose to rock that no shave November look all year round, or they also could have been born as what's called intersex, which is very rare even today at 1.7% of all births, where 0.5% of those cases still have clinically identifiable sexual or reproductive variations, which basically means a child could be born with a female trait as a boy or a male trait as a girl, but they're still going to be more dominant in that genetic code. There's still going to be either more male traits or more female traits, or what's called Klinefelter, where it's not all XX or XY, it could be XXY, but still doesn't change the fact that God at that time still formed that baby, still allowed that child to be born, and is going to bless that doctor and that parent to choose the best route which he best sees fit as them being a male or a female moving forward, a little boy or a little girl that evolves into a man or woman someday. It doesn't mean that there's this third, fourth gender, there's this spectrum of genders, none of that. There's still only two of them. XX is female, XY is male, and if there's a few XXY traits in there, there's still going to be more one or the other. That's just how it is. So you don't got to complicate things and, try to make it something that it's not. God still loves these babies no matter how they came out the womb, defected, whatever. I don't even like the word defected because all life is a blessing starting at conception that should be carried through from the womb to the tomb. It should be valued. It should be sustainable, and we should take care and cherish those lives. God loves us all the same, male and female. It's human beings that complicate things and run away from God's greatness. God is good all the time. It's humans that are fallen nature since the Garden of Eden. So even when we don't understand why certain things happen, why things are the way they are, that doesn't change what the reality is. We're not God. Our thoughts are not his thoughts. His thoughts are not our thoughts. Stop thinking that you're God and that you got to have an explanation for everything and that you got to make up this false label just because it's not clear, cut, and dry. It is what it is when it comes to male and female. Back to Genesis. Deal with it. Now watch how this next girl thinks she's slick and tries to trap Candace Owens with smug sarcasm and this cattywampus logic that makes no sense to me and ultimately only makes her look like a fool.
Hello. So my question is also about trans people, because it's specifically about trans people competing in sports, because I think everyone here can agree we need to protect women's sports. So recently in Texas, there was a boy who won the girls wrestling state championship. Do you think that he should have been allowed to compete in that division?
I think that a man taking down a woman on a map should warrant a call to the police.
Wonderful.
And should not, of course, be considered a sport.
Because he was actually born female and forced to compete in that division despite being on HRT.
I am so open to transgender people. Like, if they want to have their own division, go for it. I literally, in fact, I would love to watch it. I actually would love to watch it. If you are opting in as a man, as a woman, to having a man take you down on a mat, that is totally fine for me. But what is unacceptable is that we have these divisions. This is for women, this is for men, and you have people that are allowing men to compete in these women's divisions and to obviously dominate, because going back to biology, men, of course, are stronger than women. They are always going to be stronger and faster than women.
It's like how Leah Thomas went from getting second place in a race as a man to winning the race.
Yeah, it's completely unacceptable, and it's fraudulent, and the people...
Exactly. Going from second to first does not happen naturally. Yeah.
And so I think... going
Leah
from...
Thomas, the swimmer who came in second place in
as a man,
Ivy
that's
League
right.
championships.
Yeah, and then he just switched his gender and suddenly was dominating.
Went from second to first. As someone who competed in athletics in college and high school myself, no one ever goes from second place to first place.
Okay, so if you, Leah Thomas was not in second place when he was competing with men.
He absolutely was. If you look at the 2019 Ivy League championships, I literally...
That is not true.
Look at the statistics. Ivy League championships 2019 men's division in the 100 free for both the prelims and the finals.
Okay, let me put it this way. Let's just... Maybe there was one race that he came in second place
the
in.
Ivy League championship was one
Okay,
race.
thumbs up. Riley Gaines, who has spoken about how she competed against Leah Thomas and it was not fair. Leah Thomas suddenly switching your gender, competing against women is not fair. I am open to Leah Thomas.
You're going to say it's not fair.
Don't ask me a question and then cut me off when I give you the answer. It's just obnoxious. It really is. I am open to Leah Thomas and every other trans person having their own category at the Olympics and allowing them to compete. That is absolutely fine. Having their own category at high school, universities, at high schools, at universities, everywhere across the country, and being able to compete. What I am not open to are biological men competing against women. If you want evidence that biological men will always defeat women, look no further than the actual Olympics and look at the time differences as it is when men are competing in a sprint versus women competing in a sprint, when men are competing in a throw versus when women are competing in a throw. If you don't want to acknowledge biological reality, I want you to lead the trans Olympics. I want you to be the person that establishes the trans events for people. Thank you for your question. There's more people behind you.
Okay. I love that your solution is separate but equal.
What? So we already have a what? Your solution is separate but equal? What are you talking about? We already have men and women divisions. So is that separate but equal? Next question.
Ooh-wee. Candace is a boss. Every time I see her, that woman is dishing out facts and just speaking with common sense. It should just be basic level understanding that for whatever reason, these kids will not let it sink in through their thick skulls. They've been brainwashed into this liberal propaganda, and we just witnessed it. That girl tried real hard to mingle all that mumbo jumbo together to somehow get Candace to stumble and to contradict herself. And you just got to know who you're going up against. Candace Owens was just speaking on the facts, was just telling the truth. And you might win all the arguments in your own head by changing historical facts and remixing things and redefining terms as you go. But that stuff doesn't fly in the real world. There are things that are the way they are, that are accurate, that don't need changed. If it ain't broke, you don't need to fix it. And when it comes to men and women's sports, there's a NCAA and an NCAA women's for a reason. There's an NFL, there's an NBA, and there's a WNBA, and whatever I don't think women have their own football yet, but give it time. I'm sure that they will. But naturally born men versus naturally born women, it's a safety hazard. The physicality, the sheer mental fortitude and dominance that men possess, we're built different. It is to keep a level playing field. As for the progressive aspect of sports, we see teams and athletes go from second to first from time to time. That's not extremely rare, but what you don't see is the all-out training and dedication and film study that goes on behind the scenes for months and even years to make that possible. But when it comes to William Thomas, who now goes by Leah Thomas, I'm still gonna call you Will. You are what you are, brother. That's your government name. I'm not going along with your facade. But he went from being 462nd on the men's side of swimming to tied for first on the women's side. Couldn't quite get it done even on the women's side, even though he had a complete advantage over Riley Gaines. But, come on now. Just be honest. He sucked going up against his rightful competition and couldn't get the job done. Didn't have enough gifts physically or didn't train hard enough, whatever it may be. There's a ton of different scenarios and things that play into that. But he took the cowardly route and took his lackluster talent to the easy competition. Instead of, working harder, sacrificing some blood, sweat, tears to maybe go from 462nd to 452nd, something like that. He sacrificed his entire manhood to be celebrated as a fake woman. That's about as goofy as if the number one ranked back-to-back national champion Georgia Bulldogs college football team, men's, took on a 1A high school football team in Montana. For my non-football fans, 1A, very low population, very low resources, not top-of-the-line training facilities, not a lot of players, not a whole lot of selection opportunities to get the best talent, versus Southern football players that eat, poop, and bleed everything football, study from the time they wake up till they go to sleep, training in the weight room, hitting PRs left and right. Top tier, top of the country, upper echelon levels of talent at that Georgia Bulldogs football program. It's just ridiculous. No match, no competition. And obviously, William Thomas can't even beat Riley Gaines, who is a top tier swimmer, the best in college swimming, as far as I'm concerned. If you tied with a man, you're definitely the best. The person getting the media propaganda push should not be glorified over an actual woman. But, that's a whole different discussion. Either way, it all comes back to people needing to get back to living righteously and start living for God and honoring him, and stop thinking that their truth and that their way is going to somehow lead to the promised lands. It won't. It will not amount to anything positive. And if you don't wake up and start pursuing the narrow path to life, I'm not saying you, I'm talking about these people. If they don't start living in reality and pursuing life, which can only be found in Jesus Christ, then it's going to be a very, very sad ending for them here on earth and forever in damnation someday. I pray for all of them. I really do. And I love them. And that's why I point out all of these radical woke agendas and deceitful wolves in sheep's clothing, because education systems and social media and lots of these parents are falsely affirming and lying these kids right to hell in a handbasket. And I don't want to see that. That's why I judge righteously, like John 7 verse 24 tells us to do as Christians. If we know the truth, if we live righteously, we're called to guide others from being lost in their wicked ways into repentance, into pursuing life in Christ. And we got to continue to stand up for what we know is right, for living in reality, not catering to all these feelings and worrying about being canceled. No. Don't worry about being canceled. You can't cancel God. If you stand firm on the rock of Jesus Christ and spread the good news of that Bible, basic instructions before leaving earth, you're going to be just fine. God works everything out together for those that love and look to him. But what do y'all think about all this? Let me know down in the comments section. Let's keep this conversation rolling. Don't forget to hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you're not already.
Divine has says it all, guys. I have little to add to it, but I love how Candace handled these guys. I feel like they're too young and they don't want to listen. They don't want to learn. I don't know who is brainwashing these kids, but I feel that they are too young to understand. Maybe with time, when they're faced with real life difficulty, they will understand better. But now Candace should just keep preaching Divine. Like, I love the fact there are so many people, so many conservative in the USA that stands for truth. The likes of Brandon, Candace, Divine, and so many of them. Like, they're out there to guide these kids, but the only important is that they're not willing to learn, they're not willing to listen. Maybe with time they will grow up and know better. Guys, hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did. See you on the next one. Watch, like, subscribe, be at peace with yourself. Bye bye.